Hi everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how I improved the detent strength on this knife right here, which is a QSP Parrot. It's a very inexpensive knife and I'm certainly pretty impressed with it for the money. There will be a full review of it coming, hopefully in the not too distant future, but today I'm going to be showing you how I fixed my biggest gripe with this knife, which was the detent strength. Now for those who don't know, the detent strength is essentially the force required to start opening the knife. The initial step out, if you like. It's very important for the action, for one. The more force takes before the detent breaks and the knife starts to open, the more likely it is that the knife fully deploys itself, like that. But it's also important because it means if the knife was dropped or if the knife was just shaken oddly, there's less chance of the blade opening itself, which could result in you getting cut, which is not good. So I have already improved the detent strength on this knife, and now when I shake the blade towards the ground, the blade doesn't open, and it certainly would have before. So that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do today. It's quite a simple process. 3 tools really. You're going to need a T8 driver for the pivot, a T6 driver for the handle screws, something to turn them with if you're using bits like I am, and something to do some levering with. So these are my mountain biking tire levers. They're what I tend to use for this kind of thing, but a large flathead would do, a designated pry bar would do as well, I guess, if you've got one. But yes, anything really will do. So first things first, we're going to remove the 2 T6 screws in the back end of the knife here. And you'll notice that we're doing this lock side up, which is fairly unusual, I guess. The reason for that is that the pivot screw here is only tooled on this side, and one of the added benefits of that is that we're removing the pocket clip. If you're right-handed and you have the pocket clip on the lock side of the knife like I do, you're going to be removing that instead of having the knife lying on that side, which means the knife's going to sit nicer on the table and not wobble about. Now I've taken out the 2 T6 handle screws, I've taken out the T8 pivot. My preference for how to do the next bit is to push the blade down onto the table, reach under here, and as you saw, it popped off very easy. So here is your liner lock, and this is what we're going to be adjusting today. I am not going to do much in the way of adjusting, but what I did previously was just lever this piece up a bit, flex it up, and get it sitting a little bit further out from the handle. This little piece right here is your detent ball, and when the knife is closed, that sits into your detent hole, which is on your blade there. And the harder this piece is pushing against the blade of the knife, pushing the detent ball into the detent hole, the stronger your detent's going to be. So the more you flex this over, the stronger the detent your knife will have once it's reassembled. So I've already flexed mine out to the point where I'm quite happy with it, so I'm not going to really adjust it too much today. But like I said, just slide something underneath, lever it up. Once it's sitting a little bit further out, reassemble it and give it a try. So while we're in here, there's a couple other things that I want to mention which are a little bit unusual. Firstly, this knife has phosphor bronze and Teflon washers, which is quite unusual, but it's not seemingly costing very much more because it's a very inexpensive knife, and they are giving it a really rather smooth action, far smoother than I expected. But just so you're aware, that is what's going on here. Also, this stop pin, I want to make you aware of that because that can quite easily escape as you take the knife apart. It just rests loose in that hole there, lines up with this hole here on the other side of the knife. But be careful when you're taking the knife apart that you don't lose that. That is an important piece. And, well, without it, your knife will have all manner of problems really. Now, reassembling, if you've taken any of the washers off, which you don't need to do, you're probably best to find out which way around the phosphor bronze washers are smoother. So I do that by just rubbing them on a bit of kitchen roll. Put my finger on top and I feel. And see, I can feel that this side of this phosphor bronze washer is smoother. Usually I would put the smoother side against the blade, but this time I'm going to be putting the smoother side up the way. And that's because there's a Teflon washer going on top. And I'm hoping that the Teflon washer and the phosphor bronze washer will rotate against each other instead of sticking together and rotating against the handle scale, the liners of the knife or the blade itself. So I'm hoping to get the Teflon and the phosphor rotating against each other. That should hopefully make the knife as smooth as possible. Now another thing that you want to be careful of at this point is that it's hard to see, but this is actually a D-shaped hole in the liner. And the pivot is D-shaped to match. The flat of the D shape is facing forward. The easiest way to not need to worry about that whatsoever is not to turn the pivot. If you can manage to not touch the pivot at all, which hopefully I've managed, then when you reassemble the knife you shouldn't even need to think about it. We'll see if that goes how I want it to right now. So I'm just going to line the handles, the lock side up. I'm pulling the liner lock up out of the way, and I'm just making sure everything's dropped into place. I'm going to open the blade fully now, and it locks open. I'm keeping pressure on the handle scale to stop anything popping up. I'm using my T8 driver again, and I'm going to screw in the pivot screw. I'm backing out first of all until I hear that pop, which means it's dropped into the threads, and I'm going to screw it in like so. Swapping back over to the T6, and I'm going to quickly put the 2 handle screws back in. Now I'm not going to tighten up the handle screws very tight whatsoever at this point, and that is because the blade centering was a little off on this knife for me, which I'm going to try and fix at the moment, but it shouldn't be something you need to worry about. Blade centering is actually looking a bit better there, and I'm not overly fussy about the blade centering on a knife at this price, so I'm just going to tighten the handle screws down instead. See, the blade centering at the moment is perfect, but I'm going to need to loosen the pivot, which might bring our blade centering off a little bit, but again, not something I'm hugely worried about on a knife at this price. See, that's looser than it should be now, and the blade's very far over, so we're going to tighten it up a little bit more. That feels pretty good. There we go. So that's the knife reassembled. If you've followed what I've just done there, your detent should be slightly harder. If it's not slightly harder, it probably means that you didn't bend the liner lock over as much as you maybe thought that you did. So repeat the process, bend it over a little bit more, give it a try, and essentially you can just play with it until you like it. I've got mine how I like it at the moment, and with the detent improved, I think it is a very good little knife. So that's going to be it for today. I hope this helps someone. Bye.